you listen to the characters I named that we are working on currently, and you put them all together, there's no coincidence that may someday equal the Avengers. I think just having that possibility on the horizon is something that excites all of us.
Com todos os heróis devidamente apresentados para o grande público, a Marvel se viu em uma de suas maiores missões na história: levar os Vingadores para as telas de cinema. Os primeiros filmes do estúdio foram bem recebidos e tiveram sucesso suficiente para garantir o tão esperado encontro entre Homem de Ferro, Thor, Capitão América, Hulk, Viúva Negra, Gavião Arqueiro e Nick Fury. O que ninguém tinha certeza era como iam encaixar tantos personagens na mesma história e como o público ia reagir a um filme tão com cara de quadrinhos. Mas o que ninguém sabia era como os Vingadores iam realizar os sonhos de várias gerações e, ao mesmo tempo, moldar uma era no cinema e na indústria do entretenimento.
This is the culmination of many, many years of work for us at Marvel Studios, right? It is the culmination of things that started on Iron Man 1. But what's great about the movie and what's great about the conceit is that this now represents just the first phase of what these movies can become.
What we're doing here is completely unprecedented. Marvel is taking all of the characters that they're putting into their movies and bringing them all together in a team franchise movie experience, which has never been done.
What have I to fear?
The Avengers. That's what we call ourselves. Sort of like a team. Earth's mightiest heroes type thing.
O universo da Marvel nos cinemas estava montado, mas a parte mais complicada era fazer o público entender que todos aqueles heróis conviviam no mesmo mundo e iriam se unir para combater alguma ameaça. Na teoria, levando em conta mais de 50 anos de história, era uma tarefa simples. Na prática, a logística e o trabalho de escrever um roteiro desses é um pesadelo. Mas não para um cara. Um sujeito que antes de começar a filmar já estava de olho nos filmes do estúdio e ao lado de Kevin Feige pavimentou a primeira e mais importante fase da Marvel nos cinemas.
Please give me the honor of also warmly welcoming our director, Joss Whedon.
Just very briefly, I want to say that I have had a dream all my life. And it was not this good.
What they had done in the movies before was obviously extremely informative and useful and fun, but at that point, Thor and Cap weren't even close to being finished. And there's also the element of, okay, you have all these parts, but how can you possibly bring them together? They don't seem to coexist, and ultimately that is what made me go, oh, this can be done and this should be done. These people don't belong together. These people wouldn't get along, and as soon as that really sort of came into focus, I realized, oh, then I actually have something to say about these people.
Como grande fã de quadrinhos e roteirista renomado e reconhecido por Buffy e Firefly, Joss Whedon sabia que o maior desafio de construir o roteiro de Vingadores era tornar aquele encontro plausível, fazer algo para que o público conseguisse acreditar no encontro de tantos heróis. Mesmo com a apresentação prévia nos filmes solo, ainda parecia uma missão complicada justificar para a audiência uma ameaça que unisse esses personagens. E por isso mesmo que, como nos quadrinhos, a primeira ideia é mostrar como, na verdade, esse é um time que não consegue ficar unido para sempre. E é exatamente isso que faz ele ser tão especial.
You know, when I started to realize how damaged these people were, how ridiculous the Avengers is as a concept for a team, how much they don't belong together and how much they would never get along, I thought, oh, there's a movie.
I love the comics, read them since I was a kid, but that's not a good enough reason. I sat down and said, well, do I have a story to tell here? Is there a part of me in here? And then I started thinking about how absurdly weird these people were. Marvel had a very clear idea of the kind of spectacle that they wanted and sort of their structure, act-wise, this conflict here, this here, and which was great for me because then I had something to build off of. And the only thing I was interested in building was, well, how do we get there? How does that matter, and how does that action tell us something about the characters we didn't know, so it's not just a checklist, which is very important to me because you don't want to come off of this feeling like a ride. You want to come off of this, and there'll be some riding, God knows, but you want to come off of it feeling like, you know, you got told a story. And so the only thing I really had to worry about was motivating it, was making it matter to these people and making these people matter to the audience.
That's enough.
O visual de todo mundo era algo que precisava também ser renovado. Não seria possível fazer um filme dos maiores heróis da Terra sem pensar em mudar os uniformes de todos eles, mesmo que boa parte já tivesse sido apresentada nos filmes anteriores. E aí a armadura do Homem de Ferro evoluiu, o Thor ficou menos pomposo e o uniforme do Capitão era totalmente novo. Mas ninguém mudou mais do que o Hulk. O Gigante Esmeralda agora era interpretado por um novo ator, Mark Ruffalo, um cara que abraçou o papel do herói e se tornou um ícone da Marvel nos cinemas. E muito disso foi pela forma como Joss Whedon e o estúdio trabalharam esse personagem.
The Hulk is a really tricky act to pull off, and what was exciting about this was, I had Mark Ruffalo, who is astonishing. He completely redefines the role of Banner, but he also got to play the Hulk. We built the model of the Hulk off his face, he gave us tons of reference, and so I feel like we have a really organic performance from one to the other. You understand, looking at Mark, there's a little Hulk in there, like he's a tough guy. And then you look at the Hulk and you see a little Banner, and that's never been done before.
For so long, I think Bruce Banner's been trying to negate his anger, his rage. And because he's trying to negate it all the time, it has to manifest itself in other ways, and eventually it just blows up and explodes.
When we started Avengers, we knew right from the beginning, you know, we could nail New York City and the aliens and the different Avengers, but at the end of the day, this film was going to be judged on the Hulk. Mark wore our iMocap suit out on set, and so every shot that had the Hulk, he did a performance for.
Hulk. Smash.
The Hulk. Mark Ruffalo was my first choice. I had a list. It was very short. His name was at the top. As Banner, he's very vulnerable, he's very funny, he's very loose, but there's this coiled element. It's a wonderful performance.
With Mark Ruffalo, I have someone who I would be happy to do every scene with for the rest of my life.
Damn straight.
And Hulk. Smash.
O trabalho com o Hulk foi um dos motivos da justíssima indicação de Vingadores para o Oscar de efeitos especiais em 2013. Mas além disso, existiam outras barreiras para quebrar, e uma delas lidava com uma das cidades mais conhecidas do mundo. Nova York ia receber uma batalha de grandes proporções, um evento gigantesco que moldaria o universo da Marvel nos cinemas. E além dessa importância para a continuidade da história, existia o fato de que ali seria o primeiro lugar onde os heróis se encontrariam. E esse trabalho gigante foi feito por 14 empresas lideradas pela ILM, a Industrial Light and Magic. E até hoje, talvez esse seja um dos melhores exemplos de efeitos visuais que a Marvel teve na última década.
One of the really interesting things about the film is that it's a movie that takes place in New York, but in the end, except for the aerial plate shoot that we did, we were only able to have the principal actors in New York for a couple of days. So the majority of the time that you see them, down on the viaduct, down on 42nd Ave, is them in New Mexico, on a green screen set.
What was very clear from the outset was that we weren't able to shoot the action as we were watching it in the animatics, and then we were going to have to create a CG playground around the stock tower, which effectively covered about 20 square blocks.
There's quite a few restrictions about shooting in New York, and where you can get road closures and where you can set off pyro, which isn't very much, and you also have a lot of restrictions around where you can take a helicopter and do filming. You can't get below 500 feet above the tops of any buildings.
What made this project different for us was just the volume of data that we knew we would have to capture. It was an enormous challenge, and the data that we acquired was effectively 2,000 spheres and over 250,000 images.
From that photography, we would take the spheres in, we would project it onto the geometry, and that would give us a nice base to start from. We would get some pretty good results very quickly, but it's the details that take, the longest amount of time. We'd have to go in and paint out all the trees and all the cars and all the people that are supposed to be moving, and everything that sticks out from the building would have to be painted out as well.
So there are a sequence of shots early in the movie where we're flying with Iron Man through New York at nighttime, and that presented us a bit of a different challenge because we knew, because we were flying so close to the buildings, we would have to see inside those buildings and see offices. So we actually shot photographs of all the rooms at our LDAC facility here and reprojected those onto low-res geometry in a shader model inside the building so you could actually see offices as you fly past the window.
Then down on the ground is where we had the most work in terms of recreating New York. We put back in trees, we put back in awnings, cop cars, cabs, traffic, little construction pipes with steam coming out of them. In all, we had about 190 assets that we were repopulating New York with, right down to the sandwich boards on the street corners. And I think that was the real key, in terms of creating New York, is you just need so much variety. And what seems kind of simple at a glance actually is quite complicated to recreate all the different pieces of.
Reconstruir a cidade foi um trabalho incrível, mas no fim das contas, isso tudo foi feito para que os alienígenas e heróis pudessem a destruir completamente. Essa grande batalha reuniu inúmeros momentos icônicos e até hoje é uma das sequências de ação mais comentadas no gênero de super-heróis. Sem cortes e coreografadas como uma grande revista de quadrinhos da Marvel lá dos anos 70, a Batalha de Nova York tornou a união dos Vingadores e a invasão dos Chitauri em um momento inesquecível para qualquer fã dos quadrinhos.
The great thing about the tie-in shot, where all the Avengers are working together to battle the aliens, is that it used 4 different virtual New York locations that we had to tie in together as Iron Man's flying between them.
From the day that we saw the previs for the shot, we realized this was going to be a massive undertaking because it's a very long shot, no cuts, where we go from hero to hero and we fly around New York, seeing how they're fighting off the alien horde. In some cases, we've got an actor on a set, a partial set with blue screen behind them. But a lot of these characters were CG, like Iron Man and the Hulk, and all the aliens that they're fighting, of course, and New York was CG behind them. So because the shot was so massive, we had to break it into sections so that we could give each section to separate groups of artists and work on them as though they were a single shot. And then we had a separate team whose job it was to pull all those sections back together and make a cohesive shot out of it, and making sure that at the blend points that it still worked, that it worked as a cohesive shot, and that it all felt like the same shot all the time.
Antes de mais nada, era importante achar um vilão que conseguisse personificar a ameaça, que conseguisse de fato mostrar que seria capaz de amedrontar os Vingadores. E a escolha foi Loki, personagem que Tom Hiddleston dominou no filme do Thor e que aqui entregaria uma performance memorável. Talvez esse seja o vilão mais importante da primeira década da Marvel nos cinemas.
Thor was about him becoming the god of mischief. At the beginning of the Avengers, he's already the god of mischief. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants. He doesn't need his family anymore. He doesn't need Odin anymore or Thor. And he's more like the god of menace.
At the end of the day, I think, the thing that makes it work is Tom. Because he breathes a lot of life into Loki. And Tom can really bring that presence, the texture, so that you go, yeah, this guy is going to destroy you either from right in front or from the back, and you don't know which.
Kneel before me. I said.
He's inverting something that is very basic about human nature. which is that it is reassuring when we are well led. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you're like Winston Churchill was a great leader, and the British people and the allies of Europe loved following him. They also loved following Hitler before it turned bad, because he was very charismatic. And Loki's come down saying, I understand this about human instincts. You actually love following more than you love leading. I'm going to lead and you're going to follow. It's the unspoken truth of humanity that you crave subjugation. Except that he's terrifying and made of hate. So he's playing on something which is true and making it something incredibly sort of wrong and tragic.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Puny god.
Aliás, avançando só um pouquinho no tempo, esse cara tem um carisma que proporcionou um dos momentos mais incríveis da história da San Diego Comic Con, que é um dos maiores palcos da cultura pop do mundo. Lá em 2013, já depois do sucesso gigante de Vingadores, Tom Hiddleston subiu no palco para o painel do Marvel Studios. Mas não como Tom Hiddleston, ele foi para lá como Loki.
We're in post-production of a movie called Thor: The Dark World right now, which is...
Humanity. Look how far you've fallen. Lining up in the sweltering heat for hours. Huddling together in the dark. Like beasts. I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Genuinely, incredibly excited.
We're in Tribeca in New York City for the close of the Tribeca Film Festival, and we are here tonight for the very auspicious opening of the Avengers.
Very exciting, and I think that we will be able to deliver. Fingers crossed.
It's going to be better than amazing.
A recepção de Vingadores em termos de crítica e público foi algo sem precedentes na história do cinema de super-heróis. Nenhum filme conseguiu fazer a bilheteria astronômica que ele fez, nem bater tantos recordes quanto ele bateu. Entre inúmeras barreiras quebradas, Vingadores conseguiu a segunda maior bilheteria da história do cinema e, naquela época, uma das maiores aberturas da bilheteria norte-americana. Para Marvel, esse foi o filme que atestou o sucesso de uma fórmula que seria copiada exaustivamente nos próximos anos. O universo compartilhado, os heróis cheios de problemas e o tom mais colorido e humorístico dos personagens seria algo que inúmeros estúdios iam caçar nos próximos anos, e quase nenhum ia conseguir ter sucesso.
Aqui é a história do super-herói da Marvel, como você já está acostumado a ver em Homem de Ferro, Hulk, Thor, Capitão América. É o jeito Marvel de fazer filme de super-herói, ou seja, é colorido, tem ameaças grandiloquentes, mas o roteiro é legal, não são só cenas de ação, inclusive a ação demora a acontecer, tem cenas de ação bem pontuadas, ele começa com uma, depois tem um monte de falatório, Aí tem toda aquela coisa Marvel os heróis precisam se entender, né, pra conseguir, que é clássico Marvel. Isso é 100% Marvel, cara.
Briga primeiro e se entende depois.
Dois heróis da Marvel nunca vão se encontrar sem brigar primeiro.
Olhando pra trás, dá pra entender que Vingadores foi o testamento que a Marvel escreveu pra ressuscitar a própria história e transformar personagens famosos só no nicho da nerdice em ícones da cultura popular mundial. Hoje, andar por aí com a camiseta dos Vingadores, fazer piada de cultura pop, ter bonecos em casa e discutir os filmes de super-herói no bar não é mais algo visto como pejorativo ou nichado. Hoje, ser nerd, ser geek, ou seja lá como você quer chamar, é bom, é legal, é comum, é moda e é normal. E muito disso se deve aos Vingadores.
It's all the same to you. I'll have that drink now.
Além do legado para a indústria e para o público, o filme da super equipe encerrou a primeira fase da Marvel nos cinemas, mas automaticamente iniciou uma coisa que se encerraria quase 7 anos depois. A rivalidade entre o Capitão América e o Tony Stark, entre o Hulk e o Thor, e é claro, as Joias do Infinito e o vilão Thanos também foram apresentados pela primeira vez nesse filme. A pedra que está no cetro do Loki é uma das joias, a da mente, enquanto o grande vilão é a mente que está por trás de todas as ações do irmão do Thor.
Humans. They are not the cowering wretches we were promised. They stand. They are unruly and therefore cannot be ruled. To challenge them is to court death.
Tudo isso seria melhor explicado nos próximos filmes e teria ainda mais importância em Guerra Infinita, o último filme da primeira década da Marvel nos cinemas.
In time, you will know what it's like to lose. To feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail all the same. Dread it. Run from it. Destiny still arrives.
Não foi só o cinema ou a ficção que mudou com esse filme. O mundo mudou depois de Vingadores. E isso é fato. Assim como não dá pra negar que a exigência dos fãs com a própria Marvel aumentaria nos próximos anos. Um sonho já tinha sido alcançado. Agora era hora de buscar outros e incluir mais personagens, apresentar mais vilões e buscar a real evolução dos quadrinhos nas telas. Testemunhar todos aqueles personagens juntos em um filme, batalhando contra alienígenas que só existiam nos quadrinhos, era algo quase surreal para quem cresceu lendo as histórias da Marvel. Dava para notar que na verdade é que, por sorte nossa, a Era dos Heróis estava só começando. Olha, que época para ser nerd!
Hold on.
E no próximo episódio do especial Marvel 10 anos vamos falar sobre Homem de Ferro 3, o mais polêmico dos filmes do herói e o longa que iniciou várias mudanças no universo do Marvel Studios.